Hey, this is Amir Borman, and this is the Daily 10 segment of the Talent Tango podcast. And sitting next to me is my brother.
That's me.
That's him. So we actually internally have a kind of a mantra, a core value for us that's super important. So we believe as an organization that we should have a very tight relationship with our candidates
Yep.
to the point where when we pick up the phone, call them, it isn't a case where I or any recruiter here have to explain who we are, where we're calling from. It should be, "Hey, how you doing, Mike? Hey, how you doing, Jill?" And they know, "Hey, it's Amir. How's it going?" That is the goal we strive for, and I think that essentially means there is like a valued relationship. There's an established relationship. That person will engage with you down the road. There's some trust, there's some, something built there that you can build off of. I think a lot of times because recruiters are so fast and they move so quick, they're not able to get to that level. It doesn't happen with every candidate, right? And
Right. Of
we're
course
not
not.
going to be 100%, but the goal for us is to strive to that level with every candidate we talk to.
Yeah, I think it's a good rule, goal, whether it's in sales or recruiting, it's first name basis, right? If you can get to that pinnacle and the person on the other end of the phone, email, text, they know who you are by simply saying, "Hey, it's Arash," then in some ways you've won, right? In the whole scope of this person knowing who you are and knowing what you do. I don't have to introduce myself every time I talk to Amir. It's like it's innate. So I think,
It would be kind of weird to go, "Hey,
hey,
Rosh, it's Amir calling you. Just wanted to
exactly.
see if you
But you
could."
know what? There are relationships, even when you think about your group of friends, right? Where, and it's a acquaintance level, right? You're not friends, right? You know them, you see them, but you really don't know their name. Like I go to the gym and it's like, yeah, I know, I see these people all the time. They're nice. I talk to them, chit chat. I still don't know their name. So I think it's getting past that kind of transactional type of level and really kind of getting to know the person so they remember you.
Yeah, I think memorability is really what we're talking about. I mean, it's when you leave that voicemail, you could just go, "Hey, so and so, just want to see if you can give me a call back. Had a quick second, I want to chat with you." That means they know your voice. First of all, second of all, we're calling a lot of cell phones for candidates. We don't have to leave our phone number. So that's my little pet peeve. Is you know 99 out of 100 people we call as candidates, we're not calling a home phone. We're calling a cell phone,
True.
right? There's that rare one you call a home phone, you get an answering machine, you're like, "All right, that was a little bit odd, but hey, teach their
They
own."
still exist.
There's no need to leave your phone number on a cell call because the number's there, they can hit call back, so to me.
Well, and or if they go into, like, their actual messages,
Yeah.
like, your number's there.
Yeah, so you don't need to leave but your voice should be recognized, and I think, whether you're internal or external, that to me defines the level of work done, and again, sometimes I've had candidates where a couple years later, you pick up and they still know you. And it makes you feel like, "You know what? I have done my job. They knew who I am. I've provided value." And I think a lot of this is how I provided my candidates value for them to want to continue the relationship because they figure, "This is a recruiter I want a relationship with." It's like any other service provider. You're gonna wanna go back to the service if your CPA does good work at tax time, next year, you're not gonna go find a new CPA. You're gonna go back to the same CPA. And I think the same thing goes to recruiting. Even though you don't always close a candidate, I think if you provide enough value, build that relationship, they will. And it happens, in recruiting all the time. They come back, "Hey, I'm looking. Do you have anything?"
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends how much, workload. I mean, I think in the sense of if you're managing a lot of recs, that might be your goal, right? You want to get that type of intimacy with the candidates so they remember you, but you just can't do it, right? So I think when the
Yeah, if you're
circumstances
transactional and you're sending out
well,
people by the
it's
droves.
not even transactional. If you have, 25 job orders, you
Sure.
can't spend that much time with every person. It's impossible. So I think in a perfect world, right? If the parameters allow for you to develop those types of relationships, then that should be your goal. And it's the gift that keeps giving, right? If you do a good job, they remember you. Obviously, we know you can get referrals. Maybe that person becomes a manager. If you're an external person, they, recruit you to help them. And or hey, sometimes, you do a good job, they become a manager. Hey, do you want to come work for us? We're hiring. We need internal recruiters. So I think that's the ultimate goal under the circumstances that you have the time to be able to. If you don't, then obviously you do the best you can. But Um, I think people remember the experience that they have with you. So keeping that in mind, it's great that you want to get to a first name basis, but how do you get that, right? And it's about developing rapport, really the person understanding that you actually care about the decision they're making for their life, not how it impacts you.
It happens in a lot of other industries. How many times do you go to a restaurant or you know people that specifically will go and ask for a specific
Sure.
person, wait staff because they want to be seated in that section. They enjoyed the way that the service they provided because they know they're going to provide consistency. And I think that's the key is people like going back to a service provider. It's not like a product where you can manufacture a widget and very seldom will there be a defect in the widget in the manufacturing process,
Well,
right?
even then, it's like Apple. Like, people like Apple products because they know what they're going to get. The experience you're going to have
It's
using an Apple
consistency.
product, and it could even
It's
be
standards that are achieved consistently.
exactly.
You know what to get. You want to go back for that. Starbucks does a great job of if you have coffee here, Europe, Asia, wherever, it's a similar experience. Geo-localized, sure,
Sure.
but it's the same experience. And I think it's because of that experience. It's standardized. You know what you're gonna get for. And I think as a service provider, whether you're an internal recruiter or external recruiter, that service level is what builds that relationship, the value you provide, them coming back again and again and wanting to work with you. And I think your old fashioned Rolodex, right? Your contacts list will expand and you have to do less recruiting, like less active sourcing. It's more, hey, I can just actually start text messaging these people, on the fly, and I can see if they're interested. Or when they're moving, they just reach out to you. And again, it reduces your time to source and your time to fill and all those kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think that again, that's the ideal place you want to get, right? I think to be able to do that, you have to put yourself in the candidate's shoes, right? I think it's an age old treat others the way you like to be treated. But I think taking that further is like, okay, if I was the candidate, how would I want somebody to treat me in this circumstance? Would I like them to leave me hanging on feedback? Hey, you know what? Really, we can't provide you feedback, but unfortunately they're passing. And that's still providing them with something. So I think it's constantly top of your mind that you got to be the one that's the candidate being interviewed, interviewing, and making sure I think we talked about this before, but just the overall interview process, who's touching base, because whatever organization you're a part of, you encompass a part of that process and you want to do your part at 100% so they remember you, but also you want them to have a good connection with whoever you represented them to as an agency and or the organization that you work for if you're internal.
Yeah, and I think it's difficult to measure experience. So I think I read something on Twitter where it said, candidate experience doesn't impact placements, and I think it's got to be very difficult to measure that because you don't have the data point for goodwill, right?
Sure.
You don't have the data point for somebody coming back into the fold or referring somebody to you because of the service level. So there's some metrics that might not be captured with goodwill, good customer service. Again, the person who is waiting tables, and somebody comes back in and wants to, they would have had that table filled anyways, but that repeat customer might be a better tip in that case, might be, an easier service for them. Whatever it is, I think there's something to be said for that goodwill being built
Well, there
through
could also be
through
the flip.
experience.
Just because it doesn't lead to a direct placement, it could also be the opposite where it leads to a bad review on Glassdoor, which prevents you from
Sure.
getting better candidates. So it's not nowadays, you can't just say, well, there's no direct correlation because you're not getting a placement from that person because the backlash, the opposite of a bad experience throughout the recruiting process can also hurt you even worse. And I think that's a huge thing to understand is it's just not on the positive. The opposite is, I think, extremely more detrimental.
So is it me or is all roads lead to experience in the end?
Well, you're a
Right?
person, you got feelings, so it
Yeah, I think it
matters.
all. I think services sales. It's all experience because people feel good. They come back and they're happy. They come back. So it all just come back to experience. So I mean, I guess I'm curious. Like, do you guys out there see here the difference between that level of experience and candidates coming back and giving referrals, or is that something you're not seeing? Very curious. And then we will be back with another episode. That's it.
Thanks.
Thanks.